And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another victorious episode of the Assembly Call. As today, your Indiana Hoosiers came back to defeat the Maryland Terrapins 63-55 to move to 7-4 on the season and even up their Big Ten record at 2-2. After a wildly ugly and forgettable first half of basketball from the Hoosiers and even a sluggish start to the second half, IU really caught fire. If you want to put numbers to how ugly it was at one point, IU had 23 points through the first 37 possessions. That's a crisp 0.62 points per possession. And we're trailing 32-23 when I don't really know what happened, but the light switch flipped on in a major way. They scored on 10 straight possessions, scoring 24 points over those 10 possessions. And over the remainder of the game, they scored almost 1.5 per possession, which for those who watched the first half of this game seemed like a dream beyond comprehension at that point. But IU really came back offensively, led by Trayce Jackson-Davis in the second half and Race Thompson in the first, and also played really solid defense for a long stretch in the second half, shut Maryland down and was able to take the lead and extend that lead and ended up winning the game by 8 in what was a important game for IU. Quite frankly, we're playing 3 of the first 4 at home, already having dropped 1 at home to Northwestern. This was a critical game and one that IU won while getting very little in terms of minutes from Armaan Franklin, who injured his left ankle in the first half and ended up playing just a few minutes in the game. I believe he ended up with just 7 minutes in the game. So on the one hand, if you had told me that IU was going to only get 7 minutes and 2 points from Armaan Franklin, a win might feel like a hard thing to believe with this team. Certainly based on how they're playing offensively. Credit to these guys for rallying back in the second half, taking the lead and not letting down as we've seen before. So there's lots to fix in terms of starting the game a bit better, but kudos to the team for rallying, getting a big win against Maryland tonight. I'm your host, Andy Bottoms, here with Ryan Phillips and the coach, Brian Tonsoni, and we'll break it all down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. And let's start this show the way we start every show, and that is with our Hoosier Proud banner moment. For me, I took Trayce Jackson-Davis, made a steal, got out in front of the Maryland player, and was able to throw down a dunk that made the game 47-43, I believe, with about 9:41 remaining. That started a streak of 12 straight IU points that Trayce Jackson-Davis scored, and that was really where IU extended the lead to double digits. During that stretch, he scored in a variety of ways, scored in the lane, scored on some putbacks, made free throws after banging knees with I think it was Galen Smith again, and just a really strong stretch from Trayce, who we all thought as we exchanged some text early in the game just didn't seem to have a ton of attention when, or not attention, attentiveness, I guess, to what was going on in the first half. Just didn't really seem tuned in as we've come to expect from him. But in the second half, he really locked things in, and that steal and dunk was the first, as I said, of 12 straight points for him during a key stretch in the game. So that was tonight's banner moment for me. The banner moment tonight is brought to you, as always, by our friends at Home Field Apparel, who is now in their 4th season of sponsoring the Assembly Call. With winter here and hoodie weather officially now arrived, you need to make your way over to their website, homefieldapparel.com. They have something unique for everyone on your shopping list, especially IU fans, and all of their all of their apparel is printed on the softest, most comfortable, most washable materials you'll find anywhere. Want a few suggestions? I have bought stuff from the Colorado School of Mines. I got a nice Hawaii sweatshirt, a Delaware Fighting Blue Hen sweatshirt, in addition to some IU stuff that I ordered. I got my email today that I got a couple IU things of the designs they released last week have officially left. So I'll be anxiously awaiting their arrival and ready to put those on when they get here. So remember, it's not just IU gear, although I know that's what most of you are interested in. If you've got anyone on your gift list, which suggest I should probably have edited this copy beforehand, but maybe you're still giving out gifts, or like me, you sent gifts that the Postal Service has yet to deliver to their rightful owner, and you're looking for something different. If you're looking for that, you can get IU stuff as well as over 90 different colleges and universities, with new ones being added all the time. And their designs are so unique, interesting, and vintage that you may end up like Coach, buying shirts and hoodies for schools you barely heard of just because you like the design. And you can always save on your home field order by using the promo code assembly20 at checkout. That'll give you 20% off your entire order throughout the year. So go to homefieldapparel.com, load up your shopping cart, and enter assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off. Again, that's homefieldapparel.com. All right, now it's time to move the ball, find the open man, and get some opening thoughts from the rest of our team. And we'll start with Ryan Phillips. Ryan, I think after the first half, probably had a pretty good rant teed up, but you'll have to go in a different direction, my friend. And so I'll throw it to you for your thoughts on the game tonight.
Yeah, they stole my rant. They stole my rant by coming back to win.
Doing us all a huge favor, to be honest.
We'll talk about what I was worried about partially in the first half in a little bit. But what I want to say is I want to open up the Race Thompson appreciation hour right now, because I know Trayce Jackson-Davis wound up with the bigger numbers tonight, but Race Thompson was the only player who came out ready to play from the beginning. And even Trayce, Trayce had a huge second half and closed out the game like an All-American should, and looked every bit the All-American in this especially late in the second half. But from the jump, Race Thompson was in this game. He was their only offense in the beginning. He was the only one willing to attack. He was grabbing rebounds. He finished with 11. I just think that off the jump tonight, and he was defending really well too. He had a block early. I just thought that he wound up with the most minutes too at 35, and there's a reason for that. He was playing from the jump with energy, intelligently, and was attacking offensively, which we haven't seen from Race as much lately because he's kind of taken a backseat to Trayce Jackson-Davis in the post. But with Trayce struggling early on, I think he missed his first 4 shots and did not look good and did not look energetic and did not look like he was ready to attack. Race did, and he was trying to make things happen. And I just thought that without that energy early on, Indiana might have gotten blown out of the game to a point where they wouldn't have had any chance to come back. His rebounding, his defense, and then his willingness to be aggressive offensively were all things that kept Indiana in this game early. And then the rest of the team sort of caught up with him about midway through the second half. And were able to turn it on and win a game that they should have won. This is a game they should win. And so the fact that it was even close is for so long is disappointing, but at least they showed up and won it. But yeah, I think Race Thompson deserves plaudits for how he played right out of the gate. Especially, it's hard to maintain that energy when the rest of the team doesn't have it.
And Coach, we'll throw it to you next for your coach's corner on tonight's game.
Well, you got to focus on the positives. One, it was a grind out win in a Big Ten. It's going to be tough to get wins. You held home court. We're already down 1 game at home. You got to sneak 1 or 2 on the road. And have some tough home games coming. That was good. It's good to see teams handle adversity. This team did not play well, but came out with the win. So there's a positive. And it's also, again, why you want a program that's founded in defense, because defense will keep you in games when your offense is struggling or non-existent, like Indiana's offense was almost non-existent in that first half. So, the foundation really helped tonight, that they play solid defense, kept Indiana in the game, and then when they got into the groove offensively, then they were able to extend the lead and win somewhat comfortably down the stretch. Those are all positive things. 2-2 in the Big Ten, and a real tough opponent coming up. But this, I hate to say must wins, but this almost was a must win if you're going to be a tournament team and have any aspirations of having a year that improves from last year. You go down 1-3 and have to go on the road against Wisconsin. That's just setting up one of those struggles. Credit to the players for finding it. Credit for the coaching staff. Again, what's said at halftime is being heard, and the adjustments are being made. Someone in the chat said, we might be a second-half team. I hope that changes, but at least we are doing stuff and making adjustments. You also saw a lineup with Hunter playing the 3. And it'd be interesting to see what they say, what the coaches say of why they went to that. Maybe more shooting against the zone, maybe more rebounding. But I thought that lineup was there when Indiana started to make their run, despite Jerome Hunter making some tough fouls and a shot at the end that definitely why I'm wearing a ball cap tonight, right? So
definitely a YOLO shot.
Yeah, it's when you win in the Big Ten, you've got to enjoy it, and especially this year when 13 of the 14 teams are capable of beating you every night. Ugly, not ugly, whatever. Wins are wins, And we'll have a segment here where we'll focus on our concerns as we always do. But congratulations to the coaching staff. Congratulations to the players for pulling out a hard-fought victory over a Maryland team who went into the Kohl Center and beat Wisconsin. So yes, they're at the bottom of the standings right now. But man, anyone in the Big Ten you beat, it's really good win.
Yeah, so let's talk about that lineup change in the second half, because that, to me, while I'm not doing the full lineup analysis, you can look at the second half box score and get a pretty good idea of what went down. Without Armand Franklin, Rob Finney started in his place in the second half, and so it was him, Al, TJD, Race, and Trey Galloway. But when you look at the minutes played in the second half, you had Durham and Finney both play all 20. You had Trayce and Race play 18, and Jerome Hunter played 16 minutes. So that lineup was really out there the vast majority of the second half. And as you said, Coach, when things started to turn in IU's favor, that was the group that did it. Archie stuck with them for a while, did sub in a little bit there, needed to get a few of those guys rest, and then that group was back out there largely to close out the game. And that was after you saw some extended minutes in the first half for Anthony Leal in particular, who played 11 minutes, 4 for Jordan Geronimo, and Galloway had 15 in the first half. So a big shift there. And I thought that from a lineup perspective was definitely the difference. So Coach, I'll kind of throw it back to you since you brought it up initially. Did you see anything different that they were doing offensively or able to do differently offensively with that group? Because those guys were really the ones that swung the game back in IU's favor.
I think Maryland's zone gave Indiana struggles because they weren't hitting the three, and they were able to pack it in on TJD, and everyone got frustrated in the first half. And I think the coaching staff might have made a decision, who's our better three-point shooters, and Jerome hits one late. I don't think he really hit one, but he has to stretch the floor. Now you got L, Rob, and, you could hide Galloway a little bit more because Galloway, I thought, took some bad shots from three tonight. But that's the only thought, because defensively he still struggled to guard the bounce. He still got driven, and when you put that lineup in, he's got to guard the small forward. But I thought he did an okay job, other than the fouling situation. So that would be my guess, is that they wanted to move. You saw him go inside out, where even Race was at the high post against zone, then stepped out. Then it was reversal. Then they alternated guys in and out of that high post who could possibly shoot, and I think they just made an adjustment. That would be my guess. I'd have to go back and really think about it because it wasn't for defense. It had to be an offensive adjustment at halftime because that's what was needed. But that's a guess. And I'll say this, L. Durham, I thought, passed up shots even at the beginning of the second half. He had one where I thought he should take the three, and he passes to Galloway, and Galloway shoots and misses. And I thought L was and Rob both fell back into being passive in the first half, and they have to be aggressive. And I thought both of them being aggressive. It's a guards game. And we have a great set of post players, just fantastic in the two guys. But our guards have to play well. They didn't in the first half. They played excellent, I thought, in the second half, and ultimately that's the difference.
Ryan, your thoughts on that lineup in the second half, particularly the play of Jerome Hunter? I know you were talking about him a decent amount when we were texting back and forth about the game.
Yeah, I thought there's a lot that won't show up in the box score for Jerome, but I thought he played pretty well. He moved the ball on offense when he did get it. I thought that sometimes guards dribbled into him, kind of, in the spacing. I thought he did a really good job at getting it to the high post when he would catch it on the perimeter. He wound up with a couple assists. Had three. I thought he had some great rebounds. I thought late there was a bucket where he went up for an offensive rebound. Now he missed the putback, but he kept the ball alive, and Trayce finished it off with his own putback. And that was off a wide open three from Durham that Durham rimmed out. And then, he hit 2 threes. One of them will probably put Archie in an early grave, but he made it, and you can't really argue if a guy is that confident and makes his shot. But I thought defensively, he got driven at, and I know he's not a great defender. He's not going to be an elite defender, but when you have 4 good defenders on the floor and you're playing the pack line, you can deal with having one guy who's below their level, because that's the only guy you really have to help out a lot. Now, if it's 2 guys, 3 guys, that's when you run into problems. But if it's just one guy you need to help out, and everybody else holds their spacing and holds to their region of the floor and holds to their guys, you can survive on that. And Indiana did for a long time. Now, Jerome fouling 2 3-point shooters. I know coach didn't like one of those fouls. It was a landing area foul, and I definitely could see it not being called, but I definitely think his foot was close enough, closer than it should have been, whether or not it was in the landing area or not. The second one, you can't slap a guy's hand on a three. You just can't.
What time was his first three? I think his first three was really big. Wasn't it in that 8-0 run?
Yeah, it was
down 10.
It was when they started playing well, yes. And
yes, so it was a momentum three too.
Finney hit the first one to take it from 10 to 7, but then Jerome hit one in that stretch. And
it was toward the end of that. They scored on 10 straight possessions. It was on the 9th one.
And then was Trayce's
steal and dunk was right after.
Yeah, that. So that put him ahead. Jerome's three put him ahead. Yeah.
And sometimes you look at stats, like you said, and it doesn't show up. You might have missed a lot of threes, but when a three goes in at a time, that breaks the momentum. It just breaks it and adds to IU.
Yeah, and
mojo is key by Jerome.
Yeah, and I think the thing we've noticed about him is he's not shy. He'll take it at any point if he's open, if he's stepping into it. And, of course, that showed up later. But I also think defensively, I thought he grabbed some key rebounds. I thought that he was moving the ball. Again, not stuff that necessarily shows up and jumps off the stat sheet, but he had a couple key big rebounds. He had a couple of nice passes for
some hockey assists, probably.
He was willing to get the ball to Trayce Jackson-Davis at times where people weren't. And even, passing it to Trayce and getting him in that high post, Trayce can attack, but he also was kicking out and finding guys. So I do think that it was one of his better games, even though you look and you're like, well, 6 points, 2 assists, 3 rebounds. But I do think it was one of his better games, particularly this season. And what I would also say is, and I know this is a flawed stat, but Trey Galloway was minus 14. I thought he had his worst game as a Hoosier tonight. He's a freshman. That's going to happen. You're going to run into clunkers, especially, and he was due for one, especially in conference. But I thought that it was really a good move to switch Jerome in, a veteran guy who doesn't get excited, doesn't get moved around, and he played well. He stepped up when he was given the minutes.
Brent, my son's in the chat, makes a great point. He hit that three after fouling that first 3-point shooter. And kudos to Archie for not just pulling him for that mistake and leaving him in. And then, again, to Jerome for having the guts to go back down and shoot and make that three. That's a great point.
It is.
Like that could break him to go on get double-digit scoring and do some of those things. So Jerome is one of those, kind of behind-the-scenes heroes.
Yeah,
he had another 3 rim out from the opposite wing as well. So he was pretty close to hitting 3 in the second half. But
it was a good shot too. It was a good shot of a ball reversal wide open, and it was down and out. There's nothing you can do about those. That was a good shot.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for a guy like him as well, being able to play enough to get into a rhythm and play with the same group of guys. It's definitely positional. That was a factor as well. But he strikes me as a guy, especially for as much time as he's missed due to injuries over that time, like to really let him get loose and warmed up and into the flow of the game. That was a big difference. And he was, at least the box score I'm looking at, said he was plus 18 in the second half alone. And that's with fouling 2 guys on 3-pointers. So, you still don't want to do that. But
if you're going to keep that lineup, though, Geronimo's got to play better. Defensively, he's okay. Offensively, know his shot selection, but you're going to see Geronimo back up that 4 spot. If Jerome's going to play the 3, Geronimo's going to play some minutes at the 4, so that's a piece of that lineup too.
Well, and I also think what happened was they were kind of using Jerome as a swing guy. There were a couple times he came in for Trayce or Race, or he slid down to the post against, so I mean, they're really using him. And then when Race and Trayce are both in there, slide him back out to the perimeter. I think that he's got to be that versatile inside out guy. When he's in as a 4, it's a stretch 4, or he's in that high post area against the zone and able to pass out of it. So I thought, hey, you know what was good about that lineup? It was 5 veterans on the floor, and they succeeded. That's the heartening thing. We've been asking for veteran guards to step up and guys you're supposed to count on step up. Well, it was the main group was Rob Finney, Al Durham, Jerome Hunter, Race Thompson, and Trayce Jackson-Davis. Those are the 5 guys coming into the season. You said, we got to count on these guys. You don't know what the freshmen are going to give you. You got to count on these guys. And they did step up in the second half. Now, the first half is a completely different story, but they stepped up when they needed to put the game away.
Yeah, so that really, to me, is the other main storyline. And as much as I would love to forget that the first half ever happened, we joked that we were going to say that, when you're watching a replayed game on TV where we've moved ahead in the action to a different time. But I mean, this was another really slow start by this team. The offensive numbers in the first half were just dismal. 9 of 30 from the floor. If you take Race Thompson out of that, there were 5 of 25 from the field, 0 of 9 from 3. Didn't turn the ball over a lot, only 5 turnovers, but just looked really inept offensively. And I'll give a little bit of that to, you had to adjust to try to play without your second leading scorer and the guy that's really been a creator at the guard spot and a steadying force in the backcourt. However, the offense during that stretch, the play of Trayce Jackson-Davis was, kind of trying to either some kind of weird mix between draw fouls, but also avoid contact at the same time.
That's what he does. He goes into that mode sometimes. We've talked about it.
Yeah, it just, it was
really.
He
2 of 9 in the first half?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And he took one elbow jumper, but otherwise everything he took was within 4 feet of the basket. So I don't know what really the answer is for that issue. And Coach, I'll throw it to you first. I know you said, somebody in the chat had mentioned, maybe this is a second half team. As a coach, how do you change that? Because this team just did not look locked in at all. The Franklin injury shakes them a little bit, and then they just played horrible offensive basketball the whole first half and into, the first few minutes of the second half.
You are really, and Archie's got to figure it out, because there's just no excuse for the lack of offense in the first half. There's none. He's got to figure it out, and it's on him ultimately. But there is nothing worse as a coach when your best player is not locked in and goes 2 for 9. So there goes your main offensive idea leading into the game. And then, like I said, your guards, Rob didn't have a good half. Al didn't have a good half. Armand goes down, has a turnover that leads to a wide open 3, and then he's out. He only plays 7 minutes. So there's your second leading scorer gone. Now your third and fourth guys aren't playing well. There's not an offense. You can go down your play sheet and nothing's going to work. It's a horrible feeling. You got to just, at every timeout, keep encouraging, move the ball, do the things. But there was no juice. And concerning to me than any offensive scheme or player personnel, there was just, it looked like zombies out there. And they felt sorry for themselves. The 7-6 after the first media timeout, I thought they were attacking the rim. They got in a little floater. They got to the rim. I thought, okay, this is going to be pretty good. And then they got into one of those stagnant things. And Archie's teams have trouble 4 minutes, 5 minutes. And you've got to find a way from the coaching aspect to encourage guys, have that set play. But when you load the box against a post player and your perimeters aren't shooting and aren't aggressive, man, there is nothing. We face it in our high school team, and it is a struggle from a coaching. You look at your play sheet, and everything on there shows you that it's not probably going to work. It's hard. So it's got to be juice. It's got to be energy, cut hard. When they started doing it after the dunk in the second half, everything was full of energy. The ball needs energy, and it didn't have it in the first half, and that's got to get fixed. And that rests with the coaches, and the players got to, look into, you can't win the interview room the day before talking good about what you learned in practice. You got to go out and do it, and you got to go out and do it from the tip. And it's just getting tiring.
Yeah, Coach, in the first half, as I said, in the open, Race Thompson, 9.7 rebounds, 3 of them offensive, played 17 minutes. He, as I said, you're right. There was no juice. He was the only one that came out. Whatever he's listening to in his headphones before games, the rest of the team needs to get on that. Because, there was something about him that he popped early, 4 of 5 from the field, 1 of 1 from the free throw line. He's grabbing rebounds. He had 1 turnover. He was ready to go. The guy that impressed, who was the second most impressive player in the first half, was Anthony Leal. I thought that he came in, moved the ball.
Agreed.
Was aggressive, cut through screens. Now, he got lost once or twice on defense. He's a freshman. That's going to happen. But he played 11 minutes, and I was confident in him out there. He looked like he belonged. Now, if he's playing 11 minutes in the first half in every game, Indiana's in real trouble. But I thought in that game, he came in and he settled things down, played well, hung in. The plus minus
moved the ball.
The plus minus when he was on the floor is 0. So they didn't lose anything. Having a true freshman on the floor who's one of the less heralded guys in this class as far as maybe being able to play right away. They, before the season, a lot of people thought Geronimo might be able to help a little bit more. They think everyone knew Galloway was going to play. They thought Lander might be able to play. Leal was the guy where they're possibly talking about a red shirt. He came out in 11 minutes in the first half and looked real good. Had a steal.
That post defense was great. That
was guarding the post.
Guarding the post and came off of it and got a deflection steal.
Just a smart hat. You know who he reminded me of? I mean, forget the offensive side of it, but the way he moved on defensively, he reminded me of Jordy Hulls, which is interesting because that's where he went to high school. But, and he was, just moved the way he moved, the way he got around screens, the way he did it. He was constantly moving, constantly in the right place. And quite frankly, right now, with the way some of these guys played in the first half and have played in other first halves, you might just need a guy to be in the right place, and move the ball and find the next guy. He took 1-3. I thought it was a good 3 in rhythm. It just didn't go in. But yeah, I mean, as far if we're looking for positives from that first half, it's Race Thompson and it's Anthony Leal. And I thought Anthony Leal looked really good.
Yeah, that play that you guys talked about in the post where he really, and there was another possession where he got switched on to somebody in the post and did a good job. But the one where he got the steal was just, I mean, that was just want to at that point. And I think when you look for somebody to really bring the enthusiasm, as you guys talked about, that energy that was there, he really seemed to have that when he was on the floor. So certainly played well enough for me to earn other minutes. I can appreciate Archie not going away from the lineup that was working for very long in the second half to give him too many minutes after the break. I think he might have just played a minute or so late, but he definitely provided a lift and was one of the guys along with Race that you mentioned that I thought did well in the first half and an otherwise ugly first half. So, all right. Well, coming up, we are going to talk a bit more about this victory. We'll bring you the meaningful moment that you might have missed, and then we'll go inside the numbers to highlight the most important statistical notes from the game. You're listening to the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
Hi, this is AJ Moye. What's the only thing better than upsetting Duke in the Sweet 16? Celebrating it with friends afterwards. Join Jared, Andy, Ryan, and Coach for the Assembly Call after every IU basketball game. Go Hoosiers.
All right, and welcome back to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips and the coach Brian Tonsoni, and we are breaking down Indiana's 63-55 victory over Maryland tonight. And it's time for the meaningful moment that you might have missed. One of the ones that I had jotted down was that defensive play by Anthony Leal that we just talked about before we went to the break. And the other one really for me was a stretch of play from Race Thompson in the first half. And Ryan, you mentioned this as well. He had a couple nice hook shots in a sequence of about 3 possessions. So scored 5 points, got fouled on one of them, and made his free throw. Also had a nice spin move where I think it got called for goaltending on the and that tied the game at the time toward the middle part of the first half. Just thought he was assertive and smart in terms of the way he attacked things. Maryland is a team that doesn't have a lot of size. They switch everything and play a bunch of 6'5", 6'6" guys. And we've seen that from Race at times this year where he's been able to exploit some mismatches. Did that against, I think it was Devontae Williams in the Illinois game. Did that at times against Northwestern as well, I believe. And so just, smart basketball from him. But they were times that IU really needed a bucket when he was able to get those those hooks to go down, because as we talked about before, Trayce really hadn't done a whole lot. His first hook came off of a series of, I think, 7 or 8 empty possessions that were there. And you had Trayce, a lot of Trayce's baskets in the first half came off of balls that got deflected or guys lost the handle of, and they just kind of found their way into his hands. But, that stretch from Race, Ryan, as you mentioned in the first half, really kept IU in it. His rebounding was strong. He had at least 1, maybe 2 one-handed rebounds on the defensive end where he just corralled those. And I know you talked about this being the Race Thompson appreciation hour, but I thought it was one of his better offensive games, just in terms of understanding where he could get the ball and do some damage. And then once he did damage in the post, he was able to get some confidence to step out and put the ball on the floor a little bit.
Yeah, and he took a 3 at one point that I thought was a wide open look, but it was within the offense. I mean, he got it at the top of the key and was wide open. I don't know if it was the right timing to take that. That was in the second half. But I agree. I think that Race is really starting to learn angles and really starting to, and he did it in high school, but I think it's just such a different learning curve at the next level. And I think he's also starting to recognize mismatches, as you said, and starting to recognize that, hey, when a guard is on me, I need to get in the post right now, because not only am I bigger than him, but I can beat him with a hook. And I think the confidence in that hook has really come along. And he's shown that earlier in the year too, but you have 2 games where you don't show it, and then it's time to, try and bring it back. And I just think that he's a guy who is starting to get more at home offensively. And it's hard when you're the other post guy across from a would-be All-American to, find the spots where you're going to get touches. But I think that both he and Trayce need to realize the more the other guy gets touches and the more the other guy finds position in the paint, it's going to open things up for his buddy across from him, And I think that the way Race can work out on the perimeter and in the high post offensively, not to score necessarily, but to move the ball and then switch, swap spots with Trayce Jackson-Davis from time to time, really is going to open things up for him. And he knows how to put the ball in the hoop. He's starting to get there, and it's starting to be instinctive, not where he's thinking about it and thinking, oh, well, I should probably shoot this. He's getting the ball in it and wanting to score. And so not as much in the second half, but in the second half, Trayce Jackson-Davis got going, so there's really no room for him to do that. So I just think that, again, it's a guy developing and getting better and better and better. And you have to remember, half of his first 2 active seasons, he redshirted his first, but half of the last 2 seasons, it feels like he's been recovering from something. And so it's really been stunted growth every time. And now it's the first chance of extended play where he's healthy, and you're seeing the guy he can be against good teams and, of course, dominating against bad ones. I really think that he is starting to get better and starting to play much better, and he just looks like a more confident player every game.
There's a point there where I had written down, and I think 2 of them were to Race Thompson, but it was 16-6, or we were down. I don't know if we were down 10 early in that first half, but it got back to 18-15, and I wrote down 3 straight post feeds, and I think 2 of them were to Race and 1 maybe to TJD, and I have in parentheses Leal. That's when Leal entered the game, and he did a really nice job of trying to get that ball. Our freshmen really feed the post, I think, better than our upperclassmen, and that's another reason why you might see Leal and Galloway getting some run. But that was really big because there were 3 makes right there that got the game a little bit closer again as Indiana was just struggling, and it came out of a timeout and an emphasis, get the ball inside, and whatever was diagrammed, get the ball inside. That was a key moment. And Race really, when Race squares and goes to the basket, whether it's a quick spin, turn, hook, or he struggles, as does TJD when they try to go around people and throw the ball back towards the basket in their post moves. They've got to have enough belief in their physicality to go up and through people and at least get to the foul line as Race hit free throws. Trayce Jackson-Davis hit some free throws today too. They got to quit avoiding contact or going to get fouled and just making the strong moves there. But, boy, it's nice to have a couple guys you can throw that ball into. But Race was terrific tonight.
Yeah, and I want to say about our young guys, I think the difference in the upperclassmen being hesitant is the upperclassmen are very conscious of not turning the ball over, probably because Archie has drilled that into them. The freshmen have less of a conscience about that. They're willing to take some chances. They're willing to spin the ball a little wide with some side spin on it to get it in there. They're willing to maybe throw it through a little bit of traffic. And, of course, some of that you want to rein back, but you want that confidence that they have to put the ball in there, not be worrying every time that there's going to be a turnover. The one guy who hits the high post every time against the zone is Trey Galloway. The other guys, there's 2 defenders there, so they're kind of like, can I get it through there?
The freshmen have an attitude. What is he going to do? Bench me?
Yeah,
I'm going to throw it in there. The starters are like, man, I can't turn the ball over because he'll bench me. And the freshman, hey, I got some run. I'm throwing that ball in there.
Yeah, it seems that way. It really does.
Other series of stretch play that I thought was noteworthy came from Al and Rob. There was a lot of conversation about them going in to the Penn State game, a lot of conversation positively coming out of that game in terms of how they responded. And as one of you guys said earlier, they both struggled in the first half. They were combined 1 of 8 from the field, 0 for 4 from 3-point range, and just really struggled and seemed to kind of fall back into some old habits and those kinds of things. But really, to start that stretch of 24 points in 10 possessions, Rob gets into the lane, feeds Trayce for a hammer dunk. Race makes a couple free throws, then Rob makes a 3. Then Al scores on a drive. Then Al makes a 3. And then a couple possessions later, Rob has a nice drive and scores as well. Those guys really came to life in that stretch. And again, it was a tale of two halves with them, as it's been a lot of the season, but they really settled in. And in the second half, for as little as they did in the first, in the second half, you had 15 points between them, 3 assists, and they made a couple threes, and just thought their play, and both played all 20 minutes in the second half. So, and Coach, anything you saw those guys do in particular differently after halftime that allowed them to really flip the script based on how they
were aggressive? I mean, sometimes the game of basketball is just simple. The same plays were run, the same blocker mover motion where one guy goes to one side from the free throw line, and Al curled, grabbed the ball, and went to the rim. They did it early, and then for whatever reason, after the first media timeout, it went stagnant for about 10 minutes until they fed the post for 3. It seems like this team takes coaching and tries so hard to do what the game plan is to a fault. When you cross that black line, it's time to play ball. Play ball. Run what's there, yes. But you know what? We've gotten beat by 2 guys, the Audije guy and then the Illinois DeSumo, by guys just making plays. And Penn State almost beat us by guys just making plays. There was no offensive design. There was no play call that some of these teams were hitting. It's just a guy saying, I'm in open gym. I'm going to pull up and hit shots on you. We have too nice of guys. I think Al Durham and Rob Finney sometimes are too nice. You got to have a little butthole in you where you're going to just go and attack. I mean, I tried to keep it clean, Ryan. I really wanted to go the other direction. But you got to bet they were more aggressive. Rob was more aggressive. Even on that block shot, I think we were down 1 or 2, and he went the full length of the court, and the big blocked it, and the ball went the other way. That's plays you have to make. This game is meant to be aggressive, not wait till the shot clocks run down and have some heave for a shot clock. I just think they're too passive. And whatever motivation it is, you got to put a coach in charge of that, assistant coach in charge of that, yell, scream, buy them their favorite donut. I don't know what it is. But the difference between when the guards play aggressive and the guards play passive is the difference between an acceptable offense and just a crappy offense. And I'll put it on those guards. And the coaches have to get it out of the guards, too. Yeah. I'm not going to dissolve the coaches from this because I think the coaches have some real issues with this program right now.
Yeah, when it comes to your senior leaders at guard, it's definitely a relationship between the coach and the player. I mean, they both should be on the same page, especially when your head coach is a former point guard, who knows exactly what he wants out of the position. He's got to be able to translate that. I will say Al Durham in the second half, 10 points, 2 of 5 from the field. One of them was a 3, the other was a drive. But he also got fouled a lot going in and hit 5 of 6 free throws, and only 1 turnover, and that came late trying to break the press. He threw the ball out of bounds, which, of course, gave me a heart attack. And I don't think he should ever touch the ball in the backcourt on a press break ever again. But we've seen years of this. I'm done with it.
You got to find somebody else that you want to give it to. Somebody has to touch the ball, Ryan.
Yeah, I
get the ball across.
I understand. At this point, I'd rather just have Race Thompson bring it up. At least maybe
give it to Trey and have him whirly his way all the way through.
And I was thinking, well, they got Hunter, but then I remember Hunter was the one who who was put in such a bad position last year against. I won't bring up last year's Maryland game. I'm sorry. But yeah, I thought Al just was a different guy in the second half. He just was, and he was attacking, as you said, aggressive. Even if he wasn't scoring, he was getting fouled because he wasn't driving to get fouled. He was driving to. It's ironic. When you drive to get fouled, you don't get foul calls. But when you drive to score, you may not score, but you'll get calls because you're aggressively going to the hoop and not aggressively going to the side of the backboard, hoping to get to get some kind of call. He was 2 of 5 in the second. There were a couple of drives there were a couple of threes, that didn't fall. I didn't think any of them were necessarily bad shots. One of them got, rebounded for a putback. So you feel okay about that. It's making something happen, and it leads to a positive thing for IU. But in the second half, Al and Trayce Jackson-Davis and Finney and Hunter were all massively in the plus minus. Durham was plus 14, Jackson-Davis plus 14, Hunter was plus 18. Those guys just in general played well. And as bad as they played in the first half, they played well in the second. You have to give them credit for that. And you want it sustained throughout the game, and they can do it, but it's frustrating because you see how well they play when they're, as you said, Coach, being aggressive, taking guys off the dribble. Even when Finney doesn't get a chance to finish, just taking guys off the dribble, it opens things up. It opened things up for Trayce Jackson-Davis for a dunk, and it just it makes the defense
just getting
move.
into an offense instead of being passe and 6-7 seconds go off of the offense, and then you're stressing to get something off. And just ball reversals with a little
we've
juice.
talked about it. We talked
about
the
ball inside the 3-point line with more than 10 seconds left in the shot.
Exactly.
Clock.
No, we've talked about going north and south. They need a guard who can go north and south. That's what Armand Franklin does. And now we're hearing that Armand Franklin doubtful for the next 2 games with a sprained ankle, and that's what you expect when a guy sprains an ankle. We'll see how he responds to it. It's not set in stone, but he was the guy who was going north and south for this team. So those other guys have to step up. There's no other option here. If you're Al Durham, this is your last couple months playing basketball in college. You gotta be aggressive. Don't leave it on the floor. It's such a cliche, but it's true. Leave your best basketball on the floor, not in your dreams when you go home. Leave it on the floor. And he's really got to constantly be pushing himself to be better. And when he does, he's an effective player. He's a guy we thought at the beginning of the year would be a huge part of this offense. And when he's good, this team wins games. It's that simple. And so you see that in the second half, and you just want him to maintain it.
All right. Any other moments you guys wanted to hit before we talk stats? I'm going to take that as a no.
Nah.
You covered it. I mean, it was that stretch,
We all saw the bad. We all saw the good. I don't know if we missed any of it. You can't miss that bad stuff for 30 minutes or 25 minutes.
I would agree with you. All right, so let's go inside the numbers. We haven't talked a ton about the defense, and this seems like a good time to do it. Maryland came into the game. I think coming into today, they were 10th. They're 11th as I look at it right now, and it hasn't updated from this game, but 10th or 11th in adjusted offensive efficiency in the country. And IU gives up 55 points on 30, it's like about 30 or 62 possessions in total. And they gave up some points late. They gave up about 10 points over the last, 6-8 possessions when they let up a little bit. But over the first 25 possessions of the second half, they'd only given up 18 points. And I thought the defense, sure, Maryland missed some threes and did all that, but for the game, Maryland shoots 38.5% from the floor. They were an identical 10 of 26 in each half, 28% from 3 for the game. Free throw defense solid at 53.3%. But the defensive effort, I thought in large part was really good coming off especially coming off of the way that they had played against Penn State. And Maryland in some ways wanted to do similar things in terms of spreading you out. They don't really have a post guy that they want to dump the ball into. They were missing Daryl Morcell. It's worth noting that. But Coach, as you look at defensively how IU played, what stood out to you that allowed them to be able to hold what had been a really efficient Maryland team to such a low points per possession?
Rebounding. It's been stressed over and over again. I think Maryland might have had 2 offensive rebounds in the first 3 or 4 possessions, ended with 6. So that's a key for this team, especially when they play small. Maybe when Hunter in the second half, that helped. But to give up 6 offensive rebounds and only 4 second chance points for a team that shoots a lot of threes, they shot 28%. So there's going to be a lot of long rebounds. I think we cleaned that up extremely well. So. This team has been, other than the Penn State game where I thought they lost their fundamentals, and I did a little video on that for the community, I thought they've been pretty good defensively. You're not going to hold a team scoreless. You're going to get driven every once in a while. You're going to miss an assignment. I thought they got back to the fundamentals today as much as possible, covering actions and blocking out. But the rebounding stat to me stands out as you finish defensive possessions with a rebound and don't give them second, third opportunities. You're going to be in a lot of ball games games, and Indiana needed that today, especially with the poor performance in the first 25 minutes offensively. And then when things got going, it was a little bit easy victory to go from 10 down to 8 up at the end, simply because you were finishing defensive possession. So the stat that sticks out defensively for me is the overall rebounding too, 43 to 33. You could also say the offensive rebound. I thought when the energy found Indiana, their offensive rebounding, and that could help your defense too. When you start building a 4-point lead, 6-point lead, the game pressure goes on the other team and they don't run their offense. I thought Maryland's shot selection sucked in the second half because they seemed to be desperate. Well, that's because Indiana hit the offensive glass as well. I don't know how many second chance points Indiana had.
14 in total.
Yeah. So, that's where complementary everyone talks about complementary football, offense team, complementary basketball too. You put pressure offensively, but rebounding tonight was really, 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 I think, a key part in this win for the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I that was the stat I was going to point out, Coach, is you out-rebound Maryland 43 to 33. You win by 10. And I felt like they dominated the boards. Even when they weren't playing well, they were closing out and dominating the boards. And really that goes to Race Thompson and Trayce Jackson-Davis. They had 26 combined. Now you had a couple guys with a few. You had, Geronimo had 2, Hunter had 3, Finney had 2. The guards didn't really step up and put in big numbers with rebounds, but they really didn't have to because the other 2 guys were dominating. And so your post guys stepped up and did what they were supposed to do.
Yeah, in terms of other stats, the assist numbers, IU only had 3 in the first half, had 7 in the second half. That turned around. Only 10 turnovers for the game. I know that continues to be a big point of emphasis. A couple of those came late with the press. One was on this wasn't late, but shot clock violation in the first half that was just kind of a silly turnover.
Yeah,
but
Trey
overall,
Galloway drove when he should have shot, basically.
Yeah, overall, IU took care of the ball well and was 15 of 18 from the free throw line, and that continued 12 of 14 in the second half. So, big numbers there. Both.
Yeah, that was my other stat, Andy, is that for this team to be successful when it's not making threes, it needs to batter the other team from the free throw line. I mean, it needs to win that battle at the free throw line handily. And it did today. I mean, 8 of 15 for Maryland, and Indiana made more than Maryland took, or made as many as Maryland took with 15-18. So that's where you get those extra points. We've talked about that at length. That's where you get those extra points. If you're not making threes, you need to be able to hit free throws and get free points there. And they did. They did a good job. And Trayce missed 2, and I think, and Durham missed 1, and that's it. And only 3 guys took them, but they stepped to the line and made them in key situations.
Yeah, the 3-point shooting, as you alluded to, 0 of 9 in the first half. I think they missed at least the first 11. Did finish 4 of 13 in the second half. So if they missed the first 11, I know at a minimum they did that. So hit 4 of the last 11. I guess that makes you feel a little bit better. But as you look at the composition of where IU scored, they had 36 points in the paint, 12 points behind the arc, and 15 points at the free throw line. And that was it. Nothing. Absolutely nothing in the mid-range. So
that's
maybe
Armand Franklin's area, right?
I guess they just stopped using it in deference to him, apparently, since he wasn't playing in the game.
The Armand Franklin Memorial mid-range
zone. Game. Yeah. Well, they better open it back up against somebody else here at some point, or they're going to continue to struggle to score.
Yeah, and I think part of that is Trey Galloway. We talked about him, and I'm not trying to rag on him. I think that he's a freshman and he had an off night, and that's fully acceptable. I mean, you're playing a freshman this much, he's going to have off nights. But he took 4 threes, and I get antsy when Trey takes 1 3. So the fact that he's taken 4, and a couple of them were really bad. There was one where he was kind of dribbling at the top and just decided, I'm going to launch a 22-footer or whatever it was, and just kind of launched one, and he's got to be better than that. He's supposed to be the smarter of all these guys. He's supposed to be smart and understand game and understand clock. And, there's 23 seconds on the clock or 20 seconds left on the clock, and he's launching from deep, and he's not a 3-point shooter. Now, that's Armand Franklin. You're fine with it. He hits from deep. And so there were a couple times, one of them he took that was off a reversal, and it was early in the game. And I was like, all right, he took his 3 for the game, and it looked terrible. He should not do that again. And, he took a couple that were forced, and the other 3 were definitely forced and were not close. They weren't online, and they were off. And that's just something of his game that's going to have to get better. And, if he's wide open, there's nobody around him, he's got to take one. but he cannot be launching 4 threes a game if they're not going in.
And he can't take one when L. Durham had a shot that was just as good, and he one more to Galloway at the top of the key. That shot's got to be.
Leo had one too,
and Leo in the corner, right, and passed up. So you got to know who you got to play your game and know your role. Like you said, you got to take him so people come out and guard you at some point. But if there's a guy that has a better shot, you got to let him take it. I thought turnovers too. Archie talks about turnovers. Here's a game where he had 10. That's acceptable. And when you're struggling offensively, you need as many opportunities to get fouled or get shots up. You can't also shoot bad, execute bad, and then turn over the ball and expect to win in the Big Ten. So that turnover number is something to look at as well.
All right. Well, I think we've gotten all we can out of the stats from the game and touched on that. So we're going to hand out our game balls when we come back and hit any other lingering storylines. Then we'll look ahead to IU's next opponent on Thursday, and then it'll be time for last call. That's all here next on the Assembly Call. Stick with us.
This is Jordan Halls, and I never miss a shot or an episode of the Assembly Call.
You're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. Catch us live immediately following every IU basketball game, plus every Thursday night at our website, assemblycall.com. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for our free IU Hoops email newsletter. Over 7,000 of your fellow IU fans have subscribed. You can also text IU to 66866 to subscribe to the newsletter. Again, that's IU to 66866. I'm Andy Bottoms here with Ryan Phillips and the coach Brian Tonsoni, and we are breaking down IU's 63-55 victory over Maryland. And now it's time for game balls. Ryan, I'll throw this to you first, even though you said earlier who you're going to give yours to. So this won't take long, but I'll give you first crack at it.
Look, this isn't a TV show. We don't need to give him cliffhangers. I'm going with Race Thompson. I thought his energy in the first half kept Indiana in the game and sort of opened basically made it so Trayce Jackson-Davis could have an off night in the first half, and Indiana could wind up winning the game. I think that he sort of crawled so Trayce Jackson-Davis could walk in the second half. But I just think that, when he comes with energy, it affects the game across the board, offensively, defensively, on the boards. Everything. And so with 13 points, 11 rebounds, he had 2 block shots, a steal, played 35 minutes and was plus 10, made all his free throws, was efficient, 4 of 7 from the field. I just think that his energy was what kept Indiana in the game and allowed it so the game could stay close enough where Indiana didn't get blown out and had a chance to go get it in the second half.
Coach, which way are you going?
It's just hard to argue. One, it's Ryan, and I've never known Ryan to be wrong. So
thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. And it's hard to go against him, but I'm just going to throw out Trayce Jackson-Davis, so it'll go to you for the tie deciding vote.
I was worried that was what you were going to do. I appreciate that.
Because he didn't play well. Indiana didn't play well. He starts to play well, gets a massive dunk, totally turned the game around with that dunk, got energy back, and finished with 22 points and 15 rebounds and a steal that was, also a part of the
Sports
big
Center
win.
top 10. Yeah.
So, I'm going to throw it out there just so there can be a debate.
Let me say this. I would not argue with Trayce Jackson-Davis winning it. I think he had a wonderful game, and I think he had a huge game, and I think he played like an All-American. So not too much pressure on you, Andy.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Trayce. 17 and 9 in the second half, including 4 offensive rebounds, a couple steals. Certainly disappointing and frustrating to watch the way he played in the first half because, again, it just felt like he wasn't locked into the game, and we've seen that. It feels like a couple times, and then all of a sudden he turns it on. But knocks knees with a guy toward the end and basically is yelling over at the sidelines, don't take me out. Don't take me out. I'm good. I'm good. Stepped up, scored those 12 straight points in a big spot there. So I'll go with him. I will likely go with Race Thompson for the next award, perhaps to earn my way back into Ryan's favor. So we'll go with TJD. Both guys very worthy, and to me the two clear choices. So with that brings us to the Mike Roberts Real Hustle Award, and so I'll go first on this one. I think I slotted Race in for that because I thought that's a lot of what he did to get buckets in the first half. Was rebounding was really good. Opportunistic in terms of finding spots to post up when he had mismatches, and converted around the basket really well. Scored in a few different ways, and continued to, while he didn't score as much, or maybe not even at all in the second half, the rebounding was still there. Defensively, he was asked to be able to step out because of the way that Maryland plays and contain dribblers, which I thought he did a really good job of for most of the game. So he did have 4 points in the second half as I'm looking at this, hit all 4 from the free throw line and 4 rebounds. So I'll go with Race for the Mike Roberts one. We'll do reverse order on that. Coach, who you got for your award?
I think it's a no-brainer because without Race, we don't win the game for all the reasons Ryan wanted to give him the game ball. His effort and hustle, and he's key too. When he's had down moments, the team doesn't perform. He's that energy giver for this team because he blocks shots, he gets rebounds. And you know, you can't expect young kids to every game 40 minutes be full of energy, but we really need him to be. And I thought tonight he was a huge difference maker in the victory. So I would give an honorable mention. I think L gets some for his second half turnaround and his aggressiveness too. That's the kind of hustle Coach Roberts would want to see, and that helped too. But I think the Coach Roberts award goes to Race pretty easily.
Yeah,
what you got for that one?
Since I've already used Race for the other one, I had Jerome Hunter penciled in here just because I thought that he played well, and the lift he can give with Armand Franklin out on the perimeter, I think was key to the game. And I thought that, well, again, he's not a perfect defender; he's never going to be. I thought that he had some key rebounds, he had some key assists. He was kind of sort of a low key to this game. And, of course, hit those threes. But I just think that it was one of Jerome's better games. And as we talked about earlier, not something that shows up in the box score. I just thought he was solid out there. And he was on the floor when they played their best basketball. And quite frankly, that's the biggest compliment you can give a guy is the team was better when he was on the floor. Forget all the points and whatever. The team was better when he was on the floor. And I think that's a key.
I thought about Hunter for that role too, but the coach in me can't give it to a guy who fouls jump shooters twice. Giving 3 point and then takes a three shot on the break. Film session, I would love to be in film session. I would pay money to be in film session because what you're going to do is you're going to praise, and then you're going to use all the colorful language in your repertoire to say, don't do this again. So those of you in the chat room, just fill in whatever word your mom told you not to use. That's going to be said in film room about 3 times with Jerome. But I agree. I think he played his best game of the year, and it's not necessarily in the stats.
Yeah, the other guy that Hunter was another one, although I was kind of with Coach. Where
wait, so who won? Did we all go? Oh, no, you went with Race.
Yeah, 2 of us
went
with Race.
Yeah.
But the other guy that I really thought of was Leal, just because of what we said, where he gave him some really.
I did too. Had he played in the second
half,
had he played more in the second half, I would have given it to him. I think.
Yep. So, but a lot of positive complimentary contributions from guys tonight, which I thought was definitely a positive. So in terms of other storylines as we go, we'll kind of use this as a springboard to talk Wisconsin a bit. So Ryan, sounds like Archie had mentioned something about Armand missing. Missing
doubtful
at least
for the
couple
next
games.
2. Yeah, doubtful. And again, you never know with an ankle like that. He could respond tomorrow, and it could feel great. They could ice it tonight. There could be no swelling, but he could wake up tomorrow, and it could be the size of a beach ball. There's no. It just depends. They wrapped it quickly, and so we'll see. But I would not expect him to be at Wisconsin at that game.
Yeah, so that really begs the question of who steps in to take some of those minutes. You saw what they were able to do in the second half tonight. But coach, as you look ahead to Wisconsin, who's a guy that, based on the matchup, based on what IU is going to need in that game, you're really looking forward to step up in Armand's absence?
Anyone who take out Davidson. I don't care who it is, but just take out that
I want to see,
and there goes my mom again. I can't say the words I want to say because it'll get an E rating on the.
Yeah,
on
we
the
don't
show.
need
That
that
dude,
on the rate. We don't need that on the radio.
I'm gonna tell everyone there is no. I don't like Iowa for a lot of reasons, but I really don't like Wisconsin. Potter complains every time. Davidson flops and hits people in the privates. There's not a guy on that team that I really enjoy watching playing, but boy, are they good. And the trouble is they'll take you off the bounce. They'll post you. They'll run that little swing action at times. They've gone away from it some, but the bigs can hit threes, both Potter
they got
and
four
Reavers.
guys. They got
They're a tough matchup.
4 guys hitting more than 39% from 3. And
yeah, so,
they
you
got
help
44, 44, 43, 39, 36. I mean, they can all hit shots. So that's where Indiana can't get, and they can't get spread out the way they did against Penn State.
Yes, and this is a game, and I don't know if Archie has it in his repertoire, where I would say this is a no-help game. Guard your guy. Just guard your guy. Prevent back cuts. If he's in the post, try to fight around like Leal did. When he catches in the post, wall up and go one-on-one. We'll trade twos. We'll give you twos. We don't want to help and dig down in the post, double team. And no, because they'll run 5 guys in there, and you're going to double from this person. I would be a no-help. Guard your man-to-man, and send Davison. I'd send a guy into the legal screen. I don't care who it is. The 10th, 11th man.
Could do what Race did in what game was it? Was it Butler where he just stood there on a backcourt screen and just annihilated a guy? Yeah. I
mean, the dude will flop left and right. It's just not an enjoyable night. And then I got a host, and I got to talk about that guy. And they're good. They're really good. But your athleticism can beat Wisconsin. If you out-athleticism, that's really good language, but if you can out-athlete them and get up and down the court, you have a chance. But you can't be hesitant. You're going to have to score some points.
Trayce needs to go for 30 and 15 in this one or something.
Yes.
And get them in foul trouble. That's going to be the key.
Yeah, I mean, you look at – you're just kind of looking at what Maryland did to beat them, because it's a team that we just watched. And what was really uncharacteristic, if you look at Wisconsin statistically, they are top 10 in efficiency on both offense and defense. Their 2-point defense is at just over 40%, so 8th in the country, which should rightfully terrify IU fans, given IU's general shooting woes. And if that leads to a dependence on the 3-point shot, then perhaps look out. But Maryland was able to have some success against them. They shot 57% on twos. They were 20 of 35 on twos and didn't settle for a ton of threes. They hit 6 of 17, but did a solid job of being able to get there. And I think some of that is just Maryland's got enough guys that can take you off the bounce that if they get a matchup they like, then they go to that. And I think that's what you got to look for IU to do and figure out how you can score. I think IU's defense has shown itself to be good enough that that should keep you in the game. But they're up to, Ken Palm just updated. IU's up to 9th in the country in adjusted defensive efficiency. So defense in large part has kept IU in games. They got to find a way to score against Wisconsin. And in some ways, the fact that it's not going to be played at a high tempo may help IU a little bit, in the sense of not a deep team to begin with, and then you're missing one of your better players. But we don't need to tell anybody how much of a challenge it's been for IU to go into the Kohl Center and win. And we certainly don't need to get into any more of coaches' feelings about Wisconsin, unless we want to get that coveted explicit rating that we've been really angling for. So, so with that game will actually take place on Thursday. Wisconsin will have had a week to get ready for that. I don't know why it always is, although they had a game canceled, so I guess I can't blame the schedule makers. I do feel like there was a while where last year there was a stretch of games where almost everybody had 6 or 7 days to get ready for IU. But I think they had a game canceled due to COVID related stuff over the weekend. So that'll be Thursday. That'll take the place of Assembly Call Radio. So that'll be our next show. But for now, you're listening to the Assembly Call IU postgame show. And remember to check out our friends at Home Field Apparel to get the perfect gift for college sports fans in your life. Use the promo code Assembly20 at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. And with that, we'll have last call here at just after 11 Eastern. Ryan, I'll throw it to you first for final thoughts.
Look, good on the team for righting the ship in the second half, and the coaches for righting the ship in the second half and figuring it out, and especially over the last about 15 minutes. If Indiana is going to be a second half team, that's fine if that's their identity. But they can't have first halves as bad as tonight. They just can't, because against a good team, against a better team than this, you're going to get sunk. Against Michigan State, against Michigan, against Wisconsin, you're going to get sunk if you don't come out to play in the first half. You can't have one guy in Race Thompson being the only one with energy to open the game. If you do that, you're going to get blown out. And that looked like where this game was headed for a while. Now, credit to Indiana for stepping up and playing better, and especially for Trayce Jackson-Davis really turning it on in the second half when he was 2 of 9 from the field in the first half and just seemed to not be into the game. He got revved up and he got going, and those veteran guards helped him out. But Indiana can't look at this game and go like, "Yeah, we won, we're good." No, you scored twice as many points in the second half as you did in the first half, and that is a problem. You scored 42 in the second half and 21 in the first half. It's a problem. It needs to be figured out. And while the offense ran well in the second half at times, it needs to be ironed out, and guys need to figure out their spots, because, again, if you want to be in the top half of the Big Ten, just the top half of the Big Ten, you're going to have to play much better than you did tonight. And you're going to have to do it on the road in some cases. So it's a game where you're excited, you're happy they won, but there's a lot to clean up here. And it's on those guys to come out focused every time they take the floor in that jersey. And they didn't do that tonight, and it almost bit them, and they were able to come back and win, which credit to them. But at the same time, this can't be a pattern.
Coach, last call.
I'm going to say a lot of the same things. Proud of the defense, proud of the fact that the guys hung in there and handled adversity and found a way to win. Those are things you can build on. And we still haven't seen this team play with all cylinders going at the right time. I mean, everyone playing, their very best. And so hopefully that is the pattern that we will see down the road, that we're getting this inconsistent play, either first half, second half, or this player plays well for a while, then doesn't play. Get it out of our system, get it on film, and learn. That would be a plus. But it is a little bit unnerving to see consistent poor starts followed by halftime, adjustments, and they come out and play better in halftime, because against your better teams, the game's going to be over by halftime if you don't play that. And energy is the one thing that I think all of us as Indiana fans will appreciate a hard-fought game that you lose if there's energy. Watching that first half tonight was torturous. I quit taking notes. I was not enthused. Still had hope that they would turn it around, and they did. But it's not fun to watch a team play that poorly of basketball. And everyone in the program has to find a way to play more consistently for 40 minutes, or we're going to have a lot less positive post-game shows.
Yeah, from my perspective, we looked at that Penn State game and tried to figure out what, if anything, it really meant going forward. If that could be some kind of springboard into better play, where you found a way to win that game, did you carry that over the next game? And the answer for the first half tonight was absolutely not, as you mentioned. And so you hesitate to really read too much into the way that this team played in the second half, because it just hasn't been sustainable game to game. It hasn't been building game to game. That you kind of play half to half. And even within those, I took notes on a number of times where we make a positive play, take the lead, go back down the other end and do something silly. So consistency is still elusive for this group, to say the least. And so you take that and you try to figure out what that might look like going into a game at Wisconsin, a game that you're not expected to win, that you need to try to make up for losing to Northwestern at home by stealing one on the road somewhere. Is this a game where you can do that? It feels like a tall task. There's a lot of history against it happening, but I think what you hope to see is, did you spark something from Jerome Hunter tonight based on the way that he was able to play and give him a few extra minutes? He's inherently going to have to get more minutes with Armand out for this next game. Did you find something with Anthony Leal, a guy that can give you 8-10 minutes a game and move the ball and play well? It remains to be seen, because like I said, they really haven't carried over what they've done from game to game. But as I look ahead to that game, you need look no further than the guard play to figure out what's going to happen with IU. You're playing against a really veteran backcourt that coach is a huge fan of, as he said. And you're going to see a lot more of Rob and Al. Rob will likely slide into Armand's starting spot, and you aren't going to survive a first half like those two combined for tonight in the way that they've, played in some of these other games. But if you can get the Penn State version of those guys, if you can get the second half version of those guys, I think you give yourself a chance because, as Coach said, it's a guards game, and you've got to be able to get something out of guys who have been there before and are able to lead the way. And so seeing that veteran lineup led by those two in the backcourt in the second half, if you want to take positive energy from this game that can carry you forward, I think if you get a good play from the guards, you can give yourself a chance at the Kohl Center. And if you don't, it might be a long evening on Thursday night. So I'm hoping for the former, and that the guys can rally together and play a complete 40 minutes, because that's what they're going to need to do in order to pick up a big road win. But that will do it for this edition of the Assembly Call. If you want to see us do the show live and be part of the live chat, make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/assemblycall. And don't forget to go to assemblycall.com or text IU to 66866 to join our free email newsletter. Special thanks to longtime listener Bob Thompson, who produced much of the music you hear on the show. And thank you for listening. We'll be back to talk IU hoops again with you on Thursday after the Wisconsin game. Until then,
take it from me, Max Bielfeldt. Keep your calves flexed, your elbows in, and your eyes on the rim. And go Hoosiers.
Thank everybody for coming out.
All right, I got to get out of here, folks. Thank you.
All right. Well, that will do it.
We
fellas.
survived.
Survived the game, survived the post-game show.
Man, there's nothing worse than a bad first half performance, a miserable first half performance, and knowing you're going to go on the show and talk about it if they get beat.
You're already.
I love doing this, and it's healthy after a loss and all that. But
yeah, I had firmly moved into the what in the world is going to be the banner moment portion of the of things at halftime, and even like I said, even the first few minutes of the second half were just as bad.
I literally quit taking notes. I had about 15 minutes left in the second half, figuring if this turns out, I'll say something. If it doesn't, I'll say something stupid anyway. So.
All right. Well, yeah. So Thursday at Wisconsin, then Sunday at Nebraska.
Who's on the show Thursday? Ryan and I.
I am. Yeah.
I think you too. I don't know if he had somebody else for that one, but
is Jared? Wait, Jared on that one? No.
I think he thought he was going to be able to, but then said no.
Okay.
So, and then Coach, I think it's you and me on Sunday, and maybe somebody else.
Yeah, I can't be on Sunday because of NFL playoffs. The day job takes precedence, unfortunately.
Oh, playoffs. What
you got to make money, you know. It sucks. I had to go back to school today.
Yeah, it was my first day back too. I didn't realize that Jen and the girls didn't have school until their first day back wasn't until tomorrow. So poor planning on my part to be the one that had to go back.
Are you in office?
No.
Okay. Oh no, you said you went back to work, so
it did make it easier to not have to go back in person, but.
Yeah, I
still was not thrilled about it, but
I've been working
made it
at
a little
home.
easier.
I've been working at home now for this will be my 12th year working from home. So when a lot of people have been like, "Oh, it's been such a huge adjustment," COVID working from home, I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's been real taxing for me." It's trying to
How many monitors do you have to watch sports?
Just one. I mean, I have my computer and but typically one's enough for me. I do channel surf a lot. I jump around a lot. I could do more, but it's the setup we have isn't like if we were in a house, I might get another one on the wall or something, but we don't, it's an apartment, so we don't have a great setup for that. I get some Michael Scott little TVs in the corner.
The little,
yeah.
Splurged,
went for the flat screen. What? The plasma. I'm sorry.
The plasma.
Madeline's correcting me. She's the office expert in the house.
Perfect. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for joining us.
Good night, everybody. Thanks.
Came through with a win, and stay safe. And we'll talk on Thursday. All right. See you guys
Later.